to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 184 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. I'm your co-host, Luke Millette, and here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Jay Warren, and if you want to know more about taking care of moms and babies and the whole family, stay tuned for this amazing episode. All right, and we are live with episode 184 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. This is Luke, and I'm Jim. And that's Dr. Jay Warren right over there. And he is coming in from sunny San Diego. And we are coming in from the Grand Junction of the Grand Valley on the western slope of Colorado. And we just want to welcome you onto the show, Dr. Jay.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and for those that are watching this, there is a massive connection that you and Luke and I have. And that's something called Men of Iron. We've all gone through this brotherhood of forging ourselves into these exceptional, strong, dedicated, driven men. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for being a brother of Men of Iron before we jump into this episode.
Yeah, well, it's good to be with brothers.
Sir, iron sharpens iron, if you guys didn't know, but it does. And that's really an honor for us to have you on today. So in typical chiropractic, Chiro Hustle fashion, we always like to ask our interview subject to tell us their chiropractic story and what influenced you to become a chiropractor. And I'm sure everybody's going to be really on the edge of their seat waiting to hear this. So if you could share with our audience today, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Well, it started out as a kid. I didn't think I wanted to be a chiropractor, but I wanted to be in health and helping people. And because my mom was a nurse, I just kind of thought I needed to be a medical doctor. So I was kind of trapped to do that. And I was going through high school and undergrad. I'm tracked to do that here at UCSD. And I just realized that medicine was not really what I wanted, one, out of a career, and two, the philosophy of it wasn't really congruent with what I wanted to do. And I was kind of freaked out because I've been hanging my hat on that for a long time, being a medical doctor and going to medical school, that whole route. And looking back, like my mom had also brought me to chiropractors in high school. Like I was playing volleyball, had some injuries, I had headache problems, whatever it might be. Like she would bring me to more naturally oriented practitioners. And I had great experiences with my chiropractors, but I never really thought of doing it myself until one summer when I was home from college. My dad injured himself really, really badly, like so bad, like he couldn't even like move or drive. So I was driving him to appointments, and it was like through that experience of seeing this woman work with him that said, hey, maybe I could do this. And I thought it was kind of natural sports medicine, because that's kind of how I had been indoctrinated into it. So that change of things, thinking I was going to be a medical doctor, and I thought I was going to be like general practice or pediatrics is kind of what I thought I was going to do as a medical doctor. And then I thought being a chiropractor was like sports medicine. So that's kind of what I thought going into chiropractic school, what it was. And then thankfully, like going to Life West, the philosophy was taught to me. And it was within a couple of weeks that I realized, oh, this is what I'm here for. And I had a very general family-oriented practice, and I kind of dabbled in like nutrition and exercise stuff and some sports stuff. But then, fast forward now for the last 5 years, like I'm doing pregnancy, pediatrics, very, very niche down into that. 90% of my day is pregnant bellies and babies. So it's kind of come full circle that I am that kind of, I wouldn't say I'm a pediatrician in a medical sense, but I'm working with little kiddos and helping them like grow up healthy. So it's been a great arc of things that chiropractic's allowed me to do.
There's a lot of things that make you a pretty unique chiropractor. Can you maybe touch on some of the other things you have going on that aren't necessarily adjusting patients?
Sure. Yeah, I've done a lot like in podcasting. I applaud you guys for doing everything you have. I have a podcast that's geared towards pregnancy, postpartum, and birth, healthy births, happy babies, and interviewing amazing people in the field. So one, I get to learn, but then also it's something I can deliver to the patients that I have worked with, but then also that's by virtue of podcasting, it goes out all over the world, and lots of exposure has come from that. So I've been able to like speak at conferences, and I'm now a teacher with the ICPA. And there's a lot of the work that I was doing separately, kind of with the relationship that I've built through podcasting. So I created an online course for them. I've created online courses for my own pregnant patients. And I'm actually currently tomorrow and Saturday, I'm recording a new dad's class. And I've been doing a lot of work in the last year, like supporting new dads that I see are really struggling, like coming through into parenthood and having not just my experience as a dad, because I have a 6-year-old and I learned a lot as we went, but really kind of working with new families all the time to help them that way. So I'm doing that in a digital sense and creating online platforms for them to be supported in that way. So I'm busy in practice, but I'm also busy with these other projects, as well as having a 6-year-old that I'm chasing around as well. So it's all fun though.
Yeah, something that you touched on there that I think is really cool is you built a community around a niche market, and you basically share their secret of what they're doing and what makes them unique, just like we're doing for you. So it's probably really cool for you to see how you've been able to blossom some of these relationships that you've built through the interview process that you've done, and really build a business through that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many doors that have opened through the podcast. I mean, one, it was locally in my own community, interviewing people. I mean, I work in this prenatal wellness center, and we had a huge team of practitioners that were underneath this roof that I did a lot of audio interviews to be able to archive information there for the patients that come in. But then I reached out to other people within the community, the midwives, the OBs, the pediatric dentists. And so then I had a way of networking with them, and they got to know me. And then they were doing me a favor for being on my podcast, and that gave them exposure. So that nurtured a relationship. And then I went outside of the San Diego bubble into the birth community, and have interviewed like just people I never thought I'd be able to have a conversation with, because I had a podcast that was doing well. They wanted to come on and share their message. They'd have their own exposure, but also in a giving back sense. And through that, the ICPA relationship came through, like understanding other different niches that needed help and developing online programs for those. So it was a wise choice. I thought I was just doing it for like internally here in San Diego, but it's really branched out to a lot of different things that I'm doing now.
Super impressive, man. Once again, as you applaud us, we applaud you. It takes a lot of effort to get one person scheduled, as you know.
Totally.
To actually get them to send their assets over of a headshot and a bio, like, we're not asking for much.
No.
And, when you get a chance to actually push that episode out and see the amount of response that people get from your consistency, it's very rewarding. When you say like creating the podcast and doing it was rewarding for you.
Absolutely. And it's, the original podcast, the Healthy Births, Happy Babies, I started doing 5 years ago, and I was doing weekly episodes and just cranked a ton of content out. And in the library of it now, I think there's 140 something episodes, but I haven't really produced much content for that podcast in last year because I'm doing this other dad's podcast. But going into my dashboard and seeing like still daily, there's people that are listening to the podcast, and I get emails of like, hey, thank you. And like, I heard about this. Where can you find somebody in like Nebraska that does that? It's that evergreen content in that sense, like has lived on and is still popular because people want that kind of information within my niche. And so one, being able to see them making impact from an episode I did 3 years ago, like change somebody's pregnancy and have a better income is rewarding, or outcome is rewarding. But then also all of the other professional relationships that I've been able to develop, and and support me in what I'm doing, and they reach out to me to support them. Like it's just widened so much. So yeah, I would say absolutely. It's been really, really rewarding for me.
That's cool, man.
Do you have any favorite motivational quotes or words of wisdom that keep you fired up every day?
I am pretty fired up as like a doer and a goer and get things done. My mantra for myself is actually throttling myself down a bit. So maybe it's not exactly what you're looking for, but it's a coach of mine a long time ago had said like the mantra of like, all I'm going to get done today is what I can get done today. And that takes the pressure off of like, I'm a list guy and I'll have like 30 things on the beginning of the day. And on my list, there'll be 25 things at the end of the day because I've done 20, but I've added more. So my motivation to keep going is to look at long haul, like instead of getting caught up in that sprint of like, oh my gosh, I got to get this done this week. Otherwise, I'm going to miss out. It's more of just, being steady, like hitting singles and that kind of like philosophy of just like what you guys have done, just consistently put out content and consistently evolve your work so that you can have things, but not getting so overwhelmed by what I'm not doing and appreciating what I am doing and able to do is what keeps those embers going, because I can like throw a ton on, it'll be a huge bonfire and I have launches of things, but then I'll get burnt out from it. But then I'll get an email like, hey, I haven't seen an episode in a while. And then it's that kind of thing of like, all right, just keep being consistent. So I don't know if that's the same kind of like fire you up type of mantra or quote or anything, but that's what I need to keep in the pace that I set for myself.
I'm going to write that one down.
Well, if anything, this guy here is a list builder. This guy dominates a list. And when he like checks something off, it's not just a check. He like blacks it out.
Yeah.
Like it's the death of whatever the hell it was on a piece of paper. It's gone.
Right. Well, one of the, like as a list guy, like the app that I use right now, when it's done and I click it, it like puts a line through it for a second and then it's gone. So psychologically at the end of the day, all I'm seeing is what I haven't done yet. And sometimes I want to see like the paper that has all the cross outs of like, all right, there's still 10 things there, but I did 10 things rather than just seeing it there. So psychologically there is that thing of like pen, paper and crossing that big old, and seeing everything that's been completed. So yeah, the way it sounds like you're doing it, though, is like you're really annihilating it. Good for you.
My Google Calendar is actually my to-do list. Okay. But as I delete things, I write down what I did that day in a brag journal.
That's a great idea.
So I have the empty to-do list, but then I have a full day of what I accomplished.
That's a great idea. I love that. So then at the end of the day, you can like sit in and look at what you've accomplished.
Yeah, like I was seeing this person at the time and she saw my journal and she's like, oh my gosh, is that what you have to do today? I'm like, no, that's what I already did.
That's sweet. I'm writing that down. I'm going to start doing that, Luke.
Awesome.
And the other cool thing about like, if you ever want to send Luke anything, send him a box of black pens and Sharpies.
Because you burned through those also.
I go through a lot of Sharpies.
Do you have that on your list of like, went through another box of Sharpies today? Yeah.
So what do you think the world would be able to look like if more, not just mothers and children, but what if everyone got under consistent chiropractic care?
Oh, man. I mean, just like the bubble that I live in now, like if however many people that I'm serving now, like if that was the whole community, let alone the country and the world, that whole idea, like we'd just be a lot more relaxed. Obviously we're going to be much more healthy, but we're going to be like more centered and peaceful and coming from love rather than fear and stress. And God, that's what we need right now, right? I mean, what's going on the planet right now is so overwhelming for so many people, and it's putting us in fight or flight. And I feel like we were talking before we got on that, like throughout this time, I've been really grateful to be able to stay open and to be just as busy I was before, because the pregnant moms and the kiddos need that help. And because so many other things were closed down, they kept saying like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I can come here and get de-stressed and feel better and be taken care of. And I can go back out into what's out there right now just that much better, because I have to be healthy. One, if you're a pregnant mom, you're growing a baby inside a stressful physiology, and that's not what you want to do. Or you got kids at home and you're bringing your stress back to them, and then they're resonating up against your stress. So, I mean, this is such an unusual, such a strange time, but it's an amplified version of what we've always ever been hovering at. So hopefully what people are taking from this time is how stressful life can be and what we need to do to keep that under wraps and keep our health and keep what's important alive in our lives. And with the chiropractic patients that I have, they do feel like, I mean, it's what we talk about all the time, like more flexibility and adaptability to the stressors that are put on our plates. And there's no shortage of stress that are coming our way. We just want to be able to flex with those. And I would love to take them away from them, but that's one, impossible, and it's not my role. It's more of like, if they can have their nervous systems operating fine-tuned optimally, they're going to be able to handle that better, and they're going to be more peaceful with their kids. They're more peaceful with their neighbors. They're going to make better educated, informed, more bigger picture type of decisions for themselves rather than being locked in fight or flight.
Yeah, I like the chiropractic conversation that we're having here. And, you know, the guy on my shirt's BJ Palmer. And BJ Palmer had this idea of a chiropractic utopia, where if people got adjusted, he would empty the prisons, and he'd empty the infirmaries, and that people would have like this higher quality of life and this higher quality of calling for living in their innate potential. And I really believe that what you're saying there, we had an interview earlier where I said, yeah, there's not anybody out there that's like, gosh, I wish my family were more sick. Or I wish that we had a little bit more concern to get some more medicine into my kids. Like, no, nobody wants that. Like you're saying, like even when they're carrying a bun in the oven, like they're not saying, gosh, I wish I had a little bit more stress so it would have a physiological effect on my baby in the womb. No. So when we think about this chiropractic utopia and how we can actually use chiropractic as a model of wellness, and it's not about, is the mom having low back pain? Yeah, maybe. But does she want to have a successful, healthy birth? Of course. Mm-hmm. So now we're talking about like human optimization, and why is chiropractic so essential, as you said, for the state of California and, worldwide. But why is it so essential? Because it gives people a better quality of life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why we really love that question, is because when you think about what would the world be like if everyone got adjusted, we wouldn't be in this mess that we're in right now with people telling us that there's a solution to fix all of us, because a lot of us really do believe that we are healthy and that we are strong and that we are capable and our bodies can withstand anything. And if we're not going to withstand it, then hey, it might be our day to go.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And one of the things I love in the chiropractic conversation in pregnancy specifically is I kind of joke with the moms and I say, like, I'm not really doing this for you. I'm doing this for your baby, because I want your body optimized and growing this baby super healthy inside the womb and everything pelvically aligned and brain body connection efficient for that birth to go as smooth and as natural and as safe as possible. So the baby comes out into the world that much more healthy and much more gentle, and then talking about getting their babies checked on the other side. So I joke, I was like, I want your body working well, so your baby's going to be that much healthier on the other side and start off life healthy, rather than coming through distortion and that subluxation process, like having been their normal from the minute they come into the world, because the birth went less than optimally. And so with that conversation, at first they're kind of surprised. Like, what do you mean you adjust babies if they don't know? And then I can talk about that, and that as soon as I can check and have or whether it's me or another chiropractor, have your baby checked and remove that subluxation, their body from that moment on is going to know balance and health as normal, rather than fighting through a distortion and the subluxation and that stress and getting used to that. And then that snowball effect of birth trauma, delayed milestones, like sick as a toddler, all those kind of things. Like, not that we're going to prevent or can say that I'm preventing all of those problems, but they're just going to be healthier from the get-go. And what parent doesn't want that? I know I want that for my child. And I checked my kid like 30 minutes after he was born, but he chose a dad as a chiropractor. So, he knew he was getting checked right away. And I would want that for all people to be able to get checked so they can be as clear as possible from day one and just know what health is and have that be their norm.
Well, you inspire the heck out of me because, when I first got into chiropractic 11 years ago and I was working in an office, I used to tell the patients, I was like, I personally at 30 years old wish that somebody would have taken me at birth to get checked for postural distortions or for subluxation, because I do think that it creates a more homeostasis type of like inside out environment for the person to be able to, thrive, instead of dealing with, like you said, delayed speech or problems latching or whatever it is. I don't know, like, baby and kid talk, because I don't have any kids, but if I do, I'm going to use you as a resource. Say, hey, Dr. J, I have a kid. What should I be doing?
Right.
Like, listen to this episode of this podcast.
Right. Well, I mean, in that same storyline, when I was learning about pediatric chiropractic and getting training during school, I remember specifically, I told you how my mom was a nurse, and I was really sick as a kid. Like, I had a lot of earaches, a lot of tonsillitis. She waited a long, long time before my tonsils were taken out at 6 years old, because she wanted to try and work with it. But I remember specifically, it was at a Thanksgiving dinner. I was all excited about, like, I'm learning about like how it can help kids and the adjustments help with this and this and this. And she got kind of teary and she got kind of sad. And it was because she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I would have taken you to a chiropractor and your kid. Like, I had no idea that could have helped you. You were so sick and it was so hard for you. And I was like, Mom, like, of course, as parents, like, hindsight's 2020, like I would have done that. But knowing, like, for being able to plant the seeds now so that parents understand, like, instead of waiting for the wheels to fall off and going to the pediatrician to be able to try and get something to like patch it up, let's just start them right from the get-go and grow them healthy as they're designed to, and just allow their bodies to do what they're designed to with this innate wisdom that has inside. And parents get that. They get that.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle. Amen, brother. And one of the things that I want to ask you, Luke likes this question a lot too. Do you have any like chiropractic miracle stories where there was somebody came in for like infertility and all of a sudden they got pregnant because you were taking care of them, and all of a sudden like you're like, holy cow, we have kids now?
Right. No, I don't do much with fertility specifically, but with babies, on one mild sense of a baby that is not sleeping through the night, and not sleeping through the night, but like waking up every hour screaming, and their parents are ragged and finally find their way to my office. And like he had a lot of birth trauma, and he was only like 2 months old, or he was only 2 months old, but he was already 2 months old. So this has been going on for 2 months. And then finding the stress in his system and releasing it with the gentle adjustment. And he didn't seem that much different when he left the office. But then the next day I followed up with him to see how they're doing. And like the baby got like 4 hours of sleep, which 4 hours of sleep doesn't seem like a lot to a person that doesn't have kids, but 4-hour stretches after not getting any sleep is like a miracle right there. And then he just continued to do better. So like it changed in that sense of like a parent's being able to get sleep, enjoy being a parent rather than being in this like dark hole that can go on. But the true, like, I mean, thinking back to like, it was the very first year of my practice. I practiced in Costa Rica for the first year, down in a clinic down there, and a baby was brought to me. She had hemiparalysis. Like she had not been able to use like one side with her arm and her leg since she was born. And she was probably 6 months old at the time. And I had adjusted her for a couple of weeks and she was getting better and she was like putting on weight because she wasn't really thriving. And she just seemed calmer. And it was right at Christmas time. And I went home back to the States to visit with my folks. And I came back in January, and the kids' parents came in, and they were all super excited. And I was fairly fluent in Spanish by the time that I was there, but they were talking so fast and so excited, and all I heard was like hospital, hospital, hospital. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell happened? Like I was worried she like had even further problems. And the other chiropractors in the room who was fluent said that she got feeling and movement in her body. And because she was never able to roll over, they always put her on the couch in a certain way. So because she couldn't roll over that other side, and because she got that movement, she flipped off the couch and hit her head on the coffee table, which was scary, but she got her body back. And she, from that moment, like it woke up. It took a couple months of working with her, but it woke up. And so instead of this baby that was going to grow up and have not one side of her body working, like she's got her full capacity going. And that happened early on in my career. And I'm so happy that did, because you hear about miracle stories when you're in school and you think like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. Or you're like, I wish it's happened to me, and it's not, because like the miracles we're looking for are like on death's door and they, get up and walk out of the hospital type of thing. But it's the little miracles like what I described before of like getting extra rest and the parents being able to relax. And those are miracles. They're just not the same dramatic ones like a baby's like getting her half of her body to work again.
Great story, man.
So who have been some of your chiropractic heroes on your journey, whether they be living or passed on?
Yeah, well, my biggest hero has been Jeannie Ohm, head of the ICPA, who just passed last year. Like she was someone that I heard in chiropractic college talking about pregnancy and talking about birth, talking about pediatrics and being a chiropractor. And that just turned on a light bulb where I had never even conceived of that. I told you I thought I was going into being a sports medicine doc. And her just commitment to the profession and her commitment to educating the public about what we do and how it can help pregnant women, how it can help postpartum, how it can help birth and pediatrics, laid a foundation for me to come in years after the fact, where I very rarely having like a convincing conversation with a patient about how chiropractic can help, what they've done for Webster technique and understanding like what it is and what it doesn't do. And patients are coming in like, I want to get adjusted throughout my pregnancy because I understand what the benefits are. Like she's just been, for her to have done everything she'd done over those decades in the background of me, like coming up into this, and then her inviting me in to be an instructor for the ICPA and teach the materials that I was doing with prenatal psychology was just such an honor. And I remember like getting a phone call from her. I don't know how she got my phone number, and left a message, and I was just giddy. Like, I can't believe she's calling me. It's like, hey, like, see with some stuff you're doing, like, I really want to talk with you more about coming on board with the ICPA. And I mean, that was just an amazing experience for me. And like sadly with their passing, she's not here to share like her enthusiasm and her commitment in the same way, but it lives on through things that she's recorded. And her son, Justin, is like taking the reins with the ICPA and doing a fantastic job in this transition period. So it really, like Jeannie Ohm, I owe so much to, because that's what I'm doing now in my day-to-day, helping pregnancy and babies. But then also on a personal level, she's the one that inspired me to want a home birth for my child. And I understood way back then it was going to be up to mom whether or not she wanted to have a home birth or not. But thankfully she was on board, and my son was born at home, and it was just like such a magical experience for me as a dad and for my son coming into the world. And I remember it was specifically because of Jeannie and like what she was talking about with her home births. And so that has affected like career life, but then also in my personal life as well.
I remember Jeannie gave us she gave us a lot of good insight on how we can improve our last chiropractic documentary project.
Oh yeah.
She gave us a lot of good editing notes. So that's what I remember of her.
Yeah, she was such a giver. She just really just like thought about things a lot and was very clear of like, I think they need help with this, and let me put in my 2 cents, and very much not saying you need to do this because I know things, but just a helper. And like she was just amazing that way.
Yeah, she would call me from time to time from her farm and media. And we would just sit there and chat about the direction of things. And she was a massive supporter of me personally. And she was always willing to, offer a lending ear to me, just on any idea of direction where I thought that we were headed as a unit, and what we were like working on. Like Luke said, we sent her like a cut of the movie and just asked her to like watch it and maybe give us some insight on what we could do to improve. And she was all hands on deck, man. Like she was readily available to have a conversation with me. She actually told me things to like watch out for in the profession. She told me like things like to, really like be more considerate of as well. Not only that, but with like my character and like how I like improve that, like working with chiropractors. So yeah, I can definitely resonate with your message around Jeannie. Such a sweet, open heart. And, just the whole thing, like she was just a mother to the profession.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she was a mother true and true. She just had such caring and warmth for her family, of course, but then her family of chiropractors, and just being around her, like she's so enthusiastic, and she just gets started talking about like what we can do to help the planet. You just couldn't help but be like, all right, what are we doing? Like, I'm in, here we go.
Hand me something. I want to go to work, Jeannie.
Exactly.
So where do you see the chiropractic profession heading in the next 20 years or so?
I mean, I'm in that pediatric pregnancy bubble, if you will, in that niche, and so immersed with docs in the ICPA. So, like, as far as that segment of the profession, we're doing really well, and we're doing really great work, like with patient education and outreach and the like. Obviously, the ICPA is a huge organization that spearheads a lot of that work. There's a lot of transition because Jeannie did so much, and everybody's kind of figuring out what angles they're doing and how we can replicate like all that she did. But just as I was saying before, like there's so many people that come into my office, whether it's the strength of the recommendations of the OBs or the midwives and the relationships I've developed in, or just having gone and done their due diligence in Google land and seeing the great information that's out there about chiropractic and pregnancy that has removed a lot of that stigma or the questioning that when I came into the profession was what I was hammered on in school about. People don't understand what we do. We need to teach them. If they only knew, all those kind of things. And I've seen in the arc of my career that changing. Now, obviously, there's a lot more work that we can do. And at the same time, like instead of kind of barking up the tree of, well, like the only 5% of the population is seeing the chiropractors, we need to get more. Like that's been true my entire career. And so what I'm looking at is like the the increased reputation, the clout that we have, the authority is building more and more, and we have a lot more to go. But in the realm that I live in pregnancy and pediatrics, we have in the natural birth community, we have a very strong reputation, and it's going to build more and more because of the great research that ICPA does and the great outcomes that moms are getting and babies are getting, that then spreads by word of mouth, so that in the community, those moms that had help and said, oh my gosh, you got to go see this chiropractor, he helped me so much, that grassroots is only going to get bigger and bigger because people want to have their births like go as smooth as possible for the babies, let alone like the health aspects that we talked about.
So you do a lot of grassroots and referral-based marketing. Do you do any digital or online marketing, or is it mostly in person?
Well, so I do a lot of, I would say, digital support marketing, in that when people are coming in, I have my podcast episodes that I'm sending people and kind of trickling out that information. I have my own app that I give to patients that have it's a housing all of the different pregnancy videos of stretches and podcast episodes and articles and things like that. So what my realm has been in the last couple of years has been kind of more, I don't know if in marketing term form, but kind of internal, or kind of support. Once a person's inside my circle of influence, I give them a lot of information supporting what we're doing so that they become long-term clients, that they stay for a longer time, and that it plants seeds for them to spread it to others as well. Like the podcast episode, if someone's talking about say earaches in kids, I'll send them the episode that I did around earaches in kids. And then naturally moms will then start sending that to their other friends that are complaining of the same kind of things, and referrals come that way.
Keep it engaged with your practice. You were mentioning that you've created an app, and that you store all your resources on there to where you can keep in touch with your practice members, and you can say, hey, this is the resource that I have for you in regarding to this type of concern, and this is the interview you might want to listen to. And I think that that's really wise for you to do. Just on the app development, what was that like for you to say, this is what I need? What was the epiphany moment saying, hey, I need to create an app?
Well, it was super easy because I didn't develop the app. So I work with a company. Ashley Elmer is a chiropractor, pediatric and a perinatal chiropractor that has a company that basically creates app content and an app interface for chiropractors. So by part of being through the ICPA, I found out about her. And so I didn't have to do any of the app development. I'm tech savvy, but not that tech savvy by any means. But with this app culture that is more another avenue for me to be able to have someone come into my world and kind of be in that world, right? Of having everything housed in one place. I mean, to some extent, the app that they're able to create, it could become your website, because you can do scheduling. You can do, I don't think you can do email or texting through it, but it's another thing of when I'm first working with a person, and the closing, before I schedule the report of findings, I'm sending information about this is pregnancy and chiropractic. This is my card. If anything comes up before our next appointment, text or call me. And here's my podcast. Listen to this episode, and I'll write with a Sharpie on it, one of the episodes. But then now I have a free app that you can get information resources from too. So kind of out the door, they're whoa, there's so much information, and it adds then to kind of them deciding that I'm a right guy for them, because I do have all this information, and it shows I have seen a pregnant woman or two in my career that is actually what I'm doing. So the app I've only had for probably the last, I would say, 6 months, and I think it's a cool thing, but I've been really impressed with how people gravitate right towards that and wanting to have it. And then it's in their phone, which we have our phones on all the time. The other avenue like of marketing I've not really pursued that I'm really interested in is text. And I've been testing out a bunch of other people that use it, like Gary Vaynerchuk, and my son's really into Dude Perfect. And they have like Community as a company they're using where it's basically like text blasts in that kind of way. And you can use it with like list creation and top of consciousness type of thing. And I think something like that is something even more so than email that I would like to pursue. I don't have that solved or done, but like something I've been paying attention to in the last couple of months that I think is something like I would really like to get into, because texting is like way more read, way more available. If you're given permission to text somebody, then you've got them right away.
Yeah. And in this information age that we're in, like when you have like the opportunity of having more resources that are easier for people to have access to, like the app, the texting, like people just want to drop the barrier of entry, and they want to have more access to your resources. And web links work. And, you know, when you copy and paste the link to people, it's cool. But when we think about like having we should create a Chiro Hustle app. Like, who wouldn't want to have like all of our like 184 episodes on like a spot that they can just hit click and listen? Like,
absolutely.
I think that's something we could tag and everything too. Like, download our app, like jump on board and listen to like the newest episode. Dr. Jay Warren's coming out. Like,
right.
Who doesn't want to hear that episode, right?
Totally. Because then, especially with podcast episodes, like to have a link to go to listen to it, they go outside, like into whatever, like whether it's Apple Music or Google or wherever they're listening to it, they're part of that world. And so like they can get distracted from it, versus if they're inside your app, they're going to stay with it and they have to go outside it to go do something else. So I see a value in that. I might send them a link to like, this is the stretch that I want you to do to help like support the adjustments that we're doing. And it's inside the app. So I have the like breadcrumbs of like, you need to go here, 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 but they have to go into the app in order to get it. So then they see all the other things, and then that exposure becomes wider and wider.
Well, it's traffic control.
Yeah, absolutely. And focus control, right? Like keeping them inside it rather than like, oh, another podcast just like opened up, I'm going to go listen to that. And I'll come back to Jim and Lou later. And then they don't, because they get distracted, right?
So as we approach the edge of our interview here, tell us a little bit about yourself. What books are you in the middle of reading? What are some of your hobbies? What do you do on the weekends?
Yeah. Well, so when I'm not doing work stuff, like I'm a dad and I'm with my kiddo. So I have done fishing in my life. I've done way more fishing in the last year because my son is super into it. So that's definitely a big hobby of mine now. And because he's driving it, I'm supporting him in it, and I have to learn a lot. I've learned a lot about detangling fishing line, because that's a lot of what being a dad is sometimes with fishing with a 6-year-old. But now that he's gotten better, like we're learning more about like how to actually do it. We went from starting with like, let's try apples today. Like, I mean, I knew apples weren't going to work, but my son wanted to try apples as bait. I'm like, okay, all the fish are very safe around me. But that's been something we've been doing a ton of. I'm a like DIY, like kind of woodworker too. So I do a lot of like, I'm finding reclaimed wood and using it to like make little couches in the backyard and things like that. And my kind of COVID project was to build a clubhouse for my son in the backyard so that he could have his own little spot. So those are the kind of things that are still like active but not work oriented, to kind of keep things balanced. When I'm reading, I don't do a lot of fiction reading. I'd like to find a fiction book to keep it there, but I do read a lot of like I'm rereading Gary Vaynerchuk's books. Like I just love his way of being. Like, he's very different personality wise from me, but he's inspiring because he's so different. And so Crushing It, the second book, the follow-up to Crush It, is what I'm kind of thumbing through again.
That's cool, man. I love your enthusiasm to learn and There's a reason they call it fishing and not catching.
Yeah. Good point. I'm going to use that one. That's great. That is absolutely us. That's absolutely us.
And if you fish with apples, you're definitely not doing any catching.
Totally. Not at all. But, then he learned,
So what are some of your websites where people can check out your podcast or any of your online trainings? Where can people go to learn more about you?
Or your
all of it's on the one site. It's drjwarren.com. So from there, you'll see all the different avenues that you can go. Like if you're a pregnant mom, resources there, and the online courses I've created for prenatal bonding. If they're interested in kiddo care, all the stuff I'm doing with dads, and the Dadhood Journey, that whole path is in there as well. So that's the main place I put everything, and people can kind of choose their own adventure as they go from there.
Well, I want to applaud you once again for finding these hyper niche markets, being the moms and babies, and then finding the niche to the dads, because you basically segmented the list, and now you're driving home information for these subgenres in the same family. So I think it's really cool what you're doing. I love how you've built a direction for yourself, and that you're learning how to be an awesome dad. And not only that, but really helping your community and using your healing hands for the people that get services from you. So big kudos to you for doing big work. And we just want to thank you so much for being our guest today and sharing your knowledge and connecting with our audience today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that acknowledgement. I really appreciate it. Keep up the good work, guys. You're doing awesome work as well.
Thank you very much. And we just want you to enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah, I'm gonna start seeing some more patients in a little bit.
Then go
Back to it.
And then go catching.
Yeah, there you go. Or detangling the lines from last time.
All right, Dr. J, we'll see you next time.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you for having me.
All right, talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.